The grid refreshed. Zane moved past the first profile. A cropped torso, no face, 200 meters away. The next showed the same bathroom mirror from 4 angles. Each photograph had been taken with the phone held lower than the last. Zane returned to the main grid. A black shirt caught his attention. The photograph had been taken at night beneath the light of a food stall. The man had turned toward the camera while eating. Zane opened the profile. Hao, 27, 176, 69. 3 photographs. No list of preferences. Only one line beneath the photographs. Come find out more. Zane returned to the first image. Hao's face was partly turned, but enough remained visible to hold the structure together. Zane tapped the message field.
Clear face?
He set the phone beside his laptop. The report remained open across the screen. Across the city, Hao felt his phone vibrate against the table. He finished tightening the screw beneath his hand. Then he reached for the phone. The message sat beneath a profile photograph showing a shirtless man from the neck down. One hand rested near the waistband of his trousers. Zane, 29, 178, 71. Top. Hao looked at the message.
Clear face?
He opened his camera. The workshop window reflected part of the room behind him. Hao shifted until the light reached one side of his face. He pushed his hair back once. Then he took the photograph before it fell forward again. Zane's phone lit beside the laptop. He opened the image. Hao stood near the workshop window in a gray sleeveless shirt. One shoulder turned slightly toward the camera. Zane enlarged it. A second message appeared.
Better?
Zane returned to the chat.
Yes.
Your turn.
Zane looked at his own profile.
Face is there.
Not the one I'm asking for.
Zane held the phone near the edge of the table. He glanced across the office. 2 people remained at their desks. He loosened the top 2 buttons of his shirt. He checked the office again. Neither person had moved. Zane lifted the phone and kept his face in frame. He took the photograph. Zane looked at it once, then he sent it. Hao opened the image.
Drink tonight?
A location pin followed. Hao leaned back from the workbench. The open machine remained beneath the lamp. Its casing sat beside the separated wires. Zane opened it. The bar sat near Bugis inside a restored shophouse.
Tonight?
8:30.
Zane looked toward the report still open on his laptop. He could complete the review before leaving.
Just drink?
Why not?
8:30 sounds good.
Nothing followed. Zane finished the report. He corrected a figure in the final table. His phone lit as he closed the laptop.
Reserved under Hao.
Zane read the message again. Hao had already made the reservation. He checked the route from his apartment. Then he checked the weather. Rain was expected later. He set an alarm for 9:45. Enough time for one drink. A second could follow if Hao was more interesting in person. The decision would come before 10. He opened Hao's photograph once more. The bar held more light than the photograph suggested. Warm strips ran beneath the shelves. Zane gave the reservation name.
How?
The host directed him toward the back. Hao sat alone at a narrow table. One hand rested around a short glass. The black shirt from the food stall photograph fitted closer in person. Hao looked up. His attention moved across Zane's open collar before reaching his face.
How?
You can sit.
Zane pulled out the chair.
You look better in person.
Zane looked at the black shirt, then at the hand around the glass. Hao's mouth shifted near the rim. A server approached before he answered. Zane took the menu and opened it.
What did you order?
Something with rum, lime, and ginger.
Zane closed the menu.
I'll have the same.
The server took the order and moved away.
You decided that quickly.
I decide most things quickly.
The answer came cleanly enough that Hao paused before drinking. The server returned with Zane's drink. The first taste carried heat through the ginger before the rum settled beneath it. Hao watched him.
Well?
Not bad.
Zane took another drink.
What are you expecting tonight?
Hao's fingers remained around his drink.
A drink.
And after?
Nothing planned.
Zane looked at him. Hao glanced at Zane's open collar. Zane followed the look. A couple passed behind Hao's chair. The narrow aisle forced one of them close to the table. Hao shifted forward. His knee touched Zane's beneath the table. Zane looked down once, then returned to Hao. His knee stayed against his. Zane took another sip. Hao looked at him for another second. Then he reached for the menu.
Did you eat?
I thought this was one drink.
It can still be one drink.
Hao opened the menu.
I'm not trying to impress you.
Zane's mouth tightened near one corner.
That may be the first thing tonight. I don't believe.
Hao glanced up from the menu. Rain began striking the front windows. Hao closed the menu.
This place is about to get worse.
Zane looked toward the front. The entrance had already filled with people escaping the rain. Hao held his gaze. Then he stood.
Come on.
Zane remained seated.
Where?
Somewhere we can eat.
In this rain?
You coming?
Zane looked toward the windows again. The rain had taken the street completely. He finished the drink and stood. Hao stepped toward the aisle. Zane followed him through the crowd. Headlights broke across the water as cars moved through the intersection. Hao opened the umbrella.
You ready for a run?
Zane watched the rain.
Now?
Hao stepped closer to the edge of the awning. Zane buttoned his jacket once. Hao's attention dropped to the movement.
That won't help.
He stepped into the rain. Zane followed. Their shoulders met beneath the umbrella at once. Hao held the handle between them, and Zane moved closer as water caught the outside of his sleeve.
Is the restaurant closed?
It is.
How close?
Closer if you stop asking.
They reached the crossing as the signal changed. Hao broke into a run. Zane matched him. The umbrella pulled backward in the wind. Rain reached beneath it and struck across their shirts. Hao tightened his grip.
It's folding.
It's fine.
That is not fine.
Hao laughed and dragged the umbrella lower. The sound caught Zane off guard. It was the first time he had heard it fully. A car turned beside them. Water lifted from the road and broke across their legs. Zane stopped. Hao caught his wrist and pulled him forward. Zane's hair had fallen across his forehead. Hao watched him push it back.
You're getting wet.
So are you.
You look pleased.
A little.
Across the walkway, arcade lights moved behind a wide glass entrance. Zane caught Hao by the forearm.
There.
That isn't restaurant.
They ran across the open stretch. Rain struck their backs, and Zane kept hold of Hao's arm until they reached the doors. They stepped inside. Electronic music and racing engines replaced the rain. Hao lowered the umbrella. Zane stood beside him. His jacket had darkened across both shoulders. The shirt beneath clung near the open collar. Hao's attention settled there. Zane pushed his hair back again.
What?
You really did try to save the jacket.
Zane glanced down at the wet fabric. Hao shook the umbrella once near the entrance. Zane removed his jacket. The damp shirt pulled close across his chest and arms. Hao's gaze returned there. Zane caught it.
You already had the photograph.
That one was when you were dry.
So, this is better?
Yeah.
Zane held his gaze. A racing game flashed near the entrance. 2 empty seats faced a wide screen. Hao nodded toward it.
You play?
Sometimes.
Good?
Come find out.
Zane placed his jacket across the back of the first seat and sat.
You can choose the car.
Giving me an advantage?
You'll need one.
Hao selected the first car on the screen. Zane chose the fastest. The countdown reached 0. Hao pushed forward first.
You're slow.
I'm learning the controls.
Hao blocked the center. Zane moved left, then cut back as the lane opened. His car passed Hao before the final turn. The finish line flashed across the screen. Zane's name appeared first. Hao looked at the result. The screen reset. Hao selected another race.
Again.
You didn't enjoy losing?
It won't happen twice.
Oh, it will.
The second race began. Hao pushed forward with the same speed. Zane stayed beside him this time.
You did that deliberately.
You were in the way.
I was ahead.
Yeah, for a second.
Zane took the next turn cleanly. He passed Hao halfway through the track and held the lead to the finish. The result appeared again. Zane leaned back.
I won, twice.
You cheated.
They left the racing seats. The wet jacket remained folded over Zane's arm. Hao took the jacket and placed it over the back of the seat.
You could have asked.
No one's going to take it.
Hao looked once, then walked toward the basketball machines. Zane followed.
You ready? Are you?
The first ball dropped through the hoop. The second struck the rim and came back. The scores climbed together. Hao stayed ahead through the first half. Zane closed the gap as the hoop shifted backward. Their shoulders met between throws. Hao reached across for a loose ball. Zane blocked him with his hip. The ball rolled toward Zane's side. Hao grabbed the next one. The final seconds flashed. The scores froze. Zane won by 1.
You lost.
Hao stepped closer.
One more? No.
Zane looked toward the next row of machines. A line of claw machines stood along the wall. Small animals filled the glass compartments beneath rows of metal arms. Hao walked toward them. Zane came beside him. Zane looked through the first machine.
Which one do you want?
Hao glanced at him.
You're offering?
Hao stepped closer to the glass. A small animal in a green hood sat near the back.
That one. You think you can catch it?
Of course.
He adjusted it once, then lowered it. The claw moved toward the opening. The toy swung beneath it. Zane bent and pulled it out. He held it toward Hao. Hao looked at the green hood, then at him. He turned it once in his hand. Zane watched him examine it.
Well?
Hao stepped forward, his arms closed around Zane. The hug landed with enough force to shift him back half a step. The damp fabric of their shirts pressed together. Hao stayed against him. Zane's hand settled more firmly at his back. Zane looked at the toy trapped between their bodies.
You're crushing the doll.
Zane's phone began vibrating from inside the jacket. He looked toward the racing seats. Zane pulled the phone from the pocket. The screen showed the time, 9:45. Hao came beside him with the toy beneath one arm. He looked at the alarm.
Don't tell me you timed me.
No, that's not...
Hao took out his phone. He checked the time and held the screen toward him.
Less than 15 minutes left.
Zane looked at him. Hao lowered the phone.
What do you say?
To what?
My place.
Zane's attention settled on him.
Warm food. Dry clothes.
Your clothes?
You don't have to be in my clothes.
Zane lifted the jacket over his arm.
I'll take the clothes.
Hao slipped his phone into his pocket. He held the toy against his side. They walked toward the exit together. Hao lived 5 minutes from the arcade. By the time they reached his building, the rain had softened and both shirts remained damp. Hao folded the umbrella near the entrance. The toy stayed tucked beneath his other arm. Zane looked up at the building. The lift arrived empty. Hao looked at Zane through the mirrored wall. His hair had fallen across his forehead. The damp shirt followed his chest beneath the open collar.
You look drenched, but better.
Is that a line?
Working?
The lift stopped. Hao unlocked the apartment and moved aside. Shoes stood against one wall near the door. A narrow table held keys, a wallet, and several business cards. A small workbench occupied one side of the living room. Tools hung above an open machine beneath a lamp. The rest of the apartment remained spare. Nothing had been prepared for a guest. Hao placed the toy on the shelf beside the television. Zane removed his shoes. Hao took the wet jacket from him and hung it near the window. He crossed to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator.
Towel?
Yes.
Hao took out a covered bowl and placed it in the microwave. He set the timer and pressed start. Zane looked toward the table near the door. One business card sat beneath the edge of the key tray. He picked it up. Jun Hao. A company name and job title appeared beneath it. Hao returned with a towel and a folded shirt.
Jun Hao?
Zane held it between two fingers.
You left out half your name.
That is my full name.
Hao placed the shirt on the sofa.
Up to you, if you want it.
Zane moved the towel through his hair and lowered it around his neck.
Do you want me to?
No.
Zane stepped closer.
Better?
Yeah.
Zane placed one hand at Hao's waist. Hao rested his palm against Zane's chest. He caught the front of Zane's trousers and pulled him closer. Their mouths met. Zane brought Hao against him as Hao's hands reached around his back. The damp black shirt pressed between them. Zane caught its hem. Hao lifted his arms and the shirt came free. Zane moved first this time. He kept one hand at Hao's waist and guided him toward the hallway. Hao opened the bedroom door. He kissed Hao and walked him back toward the bed. The edge caught behind Hao's knees. Zane remained standing between them. Hao looked up at him. The confidence from the arcade stayed in Zane's posture. Hao reached for him. Zane let himself be pulled down. The toy remained in the living room. The microwave beeped from the kitchen. Neither man moved. Hao caught Zane's face and brought him back. Their mouths met again. The microwave beeped a second time. Zane followed Hao down onto the bed. Morning reached the room through a gap in the curtains. Zane opened his eyes. Hao's side of the bed was empty. The sheet had been pulled toward the floor. One pillow rested near the edge. Zane reached for his phone, 7:18 a.m. His trousers lay beside the bed. Hao's black shirt rested closer to the doorway. Movement came from the kitchen. Zane pulled on the dry shirt Hao had left for him. He stepped into the hallway. Hao stood at the kitchen counter in loose trousers. The umbrella lay open across the table. One bent section had been separated from the frame. A small screwdriver rested between Hao's fingers. Zane stopped beside the counter.
You're fixing it?
Yeah, it folded twice yesterday.
The umbrella held its shape. He closed it and leaned it against the table. 2 cups stood beside the coffee machine. Hao poured the first and placed it in front of Zane. Hao opened the microwave and removed the bowl. He lifted the cover. The food had gone cold during the night.
Hungry?
Yeah.
Hao placed it back inside and started the microwave. Zane took out his phone.
Give me your number.
You already have my profile.
I'm not arranging dinner through the app,
Dinner?
unless you don't want to see me again.
Hao took Zane's phone and entered his number and added just Hao. Zane looked at the screen.
That's all?
That's what you call me.
Hao unlocked his own phone and opened a new contact. He held it toward Zane. Zane entered his number. He paused over the name field. Then he typed, Jian Yeoh. Hao looked at the screen.
Jian Yeoh?
Zane is what I use on the app.
And Jan?
My real name.
Hao looked at him and placed the phone beside the coffee.
So, dinner tonight, Jian?
7:30.
I'll choose where.
Fine.
Jian set the cup down. He placed one hand at Hao's waist and kissed him. Hao caught the front of the borrowed shirt. The microwave beeped. Jian pulled back enough to look at him.
I'm hungry.
So am I.
He released the shirt and turned toward the microwave. Jian stayed beside him as Hao opened the door. The repaired umbrella rested near the table. The toy in the green hood watched from the shelf. An ENTJ moves with direction, decision by decision. Reading what's ahead, choosing the next move, and adjusting quickly when the plan changes. For Jian, staying only matters once he has decided to. An ISTP moves differently, step by step. Working with what's in front of him, following what makes sense, and letting action answer what words don't. For Hao, there's no reason to explain what someone can come find out for himself. They expected something simple. One drink, one night, nothing that needed to continue. But somewhere between the rain, the games, and the time neither of them followed, the plan changed. An ENTJ and an ISTP. Different ways of deciding what comes next. But sometimes you don't need to know where something is going. You just have to come find out. This is Men Being Too Intimate, Season 5. Come find out.
Don't forget to like, subscribe,
And share for more stories on gay audiobooks.
YouTube membership is also open. Behind closed doors for anyone who would like to support the channel and enjoy more from these stories. And thank you to all current members for helping make these stories possible.
Thank you all for listening.
See you next time.